She sits in the courtroom, absently brushing her hair back with her hands. She looks timid, yet somehow confident. This college student with a clean record, no history of violence, thought her good grades and suburban life made her untouchable. Her lawyers told her she'd avoid serious prison time. They painted her as a victim, a terrified teenager who defended herself against an aggressive ex-friend. But then the text messages surfaced, and everything changed.
Julia, what you about to do, bro? Where's she at, bro? Where's she at, bro? He's scared, bro. Hey, get off my sister, bro. Get off my sister. Hey, if you touch my sister again, I'm gonna have to put my phone down, bro. Halia, crunch to get it over with, bro. Crunch to get it over with, Halia. Yeah, crunch her, Halia. Crunch her, Halia.
I'd sooner slice Culbertson's throat if she comes near me again. That's what Brianna Barazzini wrote 1 week before the confrontation. 1 week before she plunged a knife into her former best friend's neck. The defense showed video of her backing away 45 steps, claiming she had no choice. Halia Culbertson was 17 years old, a recovering addict trying to rebuild her life. She died in a parking lot outside a Columbus smoke shop while her brother held her, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. He'd already lost someone this way before. Now he was losing his sister.
She's spitting blood out of her chest. And I come over and I just see, right in this area, left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it. I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't put pressure fast enough. So, like,
that's rough. That's rough, brother. That's rough.
Man, just please save my sister, bro.
Okay.
But what prosecutors found in those text messages would shatter Brianna's entire defense and expose the truth about what really happened on March 27, 2023. Brianna Barazzini lived like any other suburban teenager in Westerville, Ohio. Going to college, working part-time, hanging out with friends. She was enrolled at Columbus State Community College. She had good grades, a clean record, nothing that suggested violence. When she walked into 161 Carryout that March evening, she had a knife in her pocket from work. By the time she left, a 17-year-old girl would be dying in a parking lot, and Brianna would be facing murder charges. Halia Culbertson was everything you'd expect from a 17-year-old with dreams, outgoing, social, loved by everyone who knew her. She grew up in Northeast Columbus, surrounded by a loving and close-knit family. Her grandparents, Vicky Cashdollar and Harley Langley, played a huge role in her life. She had an open and radiant spirit, someone who loved life deeply and made friends easily. Everyone she met seemed to become her new best friend. There was a natural warmth about her, a gift for making others feel valued and seen. But Halia had a history with Brianna. They'd been best friends once, inseparable. The kind of teenage friendship that feels like it'll last forever, until it doesn't. By March 2023, that friendship had turned into something toxic. To understand how Brianna Barazzini became a killer, we need to go back to when that friendship first fell apart. According to Brianna's own words to police, they stopped being friends around October or September 2022. Halia used to be a really good friend of mine, Brianna said. And then I found out a lot that she's just a really bad person. So I stopped being friends with her, and my friend stopped talking to her. And then after that, she pretty much just went crazy, like saying she was going to kill us and slash tires and do all these things. Whether these threats were real, exaggerated, or just perceived, they had taken root in Brianna's mind. They festered into genuine fear and resentment. But what Brianna didn't tell police about her own threats would become the prosecution's most powerful weapon. For Brianna Barazzini, the evening of March 26, 2023, began ordinarily enough. It was a Sunday night. Around 8:45 p.m., her friend picked her up from her house in Westerville. They spent several hours hanging out, driving around, doing what teenagers typically do, talking, listening to music, passing time. Throughout much of the evening, Brianna had her brother on the phone. He was somewhere else in his truck, but they maintained contact, the kind of protective sibling relationship where he wanted to stay connected and make sure his younger sister was safe. Around 11:30 p.m., Brianna and her friend decided to go out for drinks, non-alcoholic beverages from a convenience store. Their destination was 161 Carryout, a smoke shop and convenience store located on Emporium Square in northeast Columbus. As Brianna would later tell police, "We always go there. That's just the spot we've gone for years." It was a routine stop at a regular hangout. Brianna had no reason to expect trouble, but what Brianna didn't know was that Halia Culbertson and her friends were already inside. Brianna walked into 161 Carryout around 11:45 p.m. with her friend. She was still on the phone with her brother, casually browsing the store, grabbing drinks. The store had several other customers, including a group that Brianna immediately recognized, and not in a good way. According to Brianna's police interview, she heard voices. "I hear two girls' voices, the ones that don't like me." It was Halia Culbertson and her friends. What happened next inside the store would be the spark that ignited everything that followed. Halia's brother was present when all these events occurred. He later told police what actually happened at that moment.
Yeah, in the smoke shop right there.
Okay.
It just
And
happened to come in, and they started going at it in the store, and Bree called Halia a cokehead.
Okay.
Halia's being
A cokehead.
Yeah, so like Halia got mad and Halia was waiting outside and they were supposed to just fight. It was supposed to just be a fight. Like I was there. I was supposed to be like in between it. I didn't even see a knife get pulled.
In the smoke shop right there, she just happened to come in and they started going at it in the store. And Bree called Halia a cokehead. Halia was a recovering addict. She was actively trying to maintain her sobriety. This insult wasn't just offensive, it was devastating. Being called out publicly about her past addiction, in front of her friends, by someone who had once been her best friend and knew her history intimately, hit a raw nerve. One word, one insult: cokehead. The verbal confrontation inside the store escalated quickly. The exact words exchanged aren't fully documented, but it was clear the situation was about to turn physical. The store employee, recognizing the danger, intervened. He removed Halia and her friends from the store, telling them to leave and attempting to de-escalate the situation before it got out of hand. But Halia didn't leave. Instead, she positioned herself outside the store, waiting, specifically for Brianna to exit. She was waiting to fight. In teenage social dynamics, walking away would have been weakness. Halia was going to stand her ground. What the surveillance camera captured next would become the prosecution's most powerful weapon. At 11:48 p.m. and 24 seconds, Brianna Barazzini exited 161 Carryout. The surveillance camera captured everything. She had drinks in her hands, not weapons, not fists, just beverages. Her friend walked beside her. They headed directly toward their car, but Halia was waiting. The moment Brianna exited, Halia approached, screaming, advancing aggressively. Brianna began backing away from Halia, repeatedly telling her she did not want to fight and urging her to back up. Halia kept moving toward Brianna as her friend Barry shouted from the background, urging her to keep fighting while he recorded the scene. "Halia, crunch your ass. Get it over with, bro. Crunch. Get it over with, Halia. Crunch your ass, Halia." But what Halia's brother would later claim was that he didn't see Brianna pull a knife out of her pocket to create distance. Meanwhile, as the video continues, Halia can be seen relentlessly pushing and striking at Brianna, seemingly undeterred even after noticing the knife. At one point, one of Brianna's friends steps forward, desperately trying to break them apart. But a male friend of Halia's quickly warns him not to interfere. Then, in a single devastating instant, everything changes. Brianna swings the knife, a sudden, frantic motion that would end one life and scar two families forever. The blade pierces Halia's upper chest, just below the clavicle, cutting into her neck and severing vital blood vessels. Within seconds, The confrontation that began with insults and anger transforms into an irreversible tragedy. What happened in the next 60 seconds would haunt Halia's brother for the rest of his life. What made the moment even more tragic was that Halia did not immediately realize she had been stabbed. In the chaos and rush of adrenaline, both girls were still struggling, unaware of the full extent of what had happened. After Brianna swung the knife, Halia continued to fight, dragging Brianna by the hair while blood began to appear. Brianna thought she might have been the one hurt as people around them shouted and laughed, unsure of what had just taken place. During the struggle, the knife fell to the ground. The two girls finally separated. Brianna and her friend moved toward their vehicle while Halia walked back to the silver Jeep where her friends were waiting. Witnesses saw her get into the Jeep, ready to leave, when one of her friends noticed blood coming from her chest. Panic spread as they realized she was spitting up blood and struggling to breathe. Among those watching in shock was Halia's brother. He rushed to her side, trying desperately to stop the bleeding as others screamed for help. "We didn't know she was bleeding out," he later told police. "She crunched Bree in the face. Bree was on the ground and she walked away. Halia walked away, got in the Jeep ready to drive, right? And she was sitting there, and someone comes over to me and goes, 'She's spitting blood out of her chest.'"
You know, she was bleeding out. She, crunched Bree in the face. Bree was on the ground, and she walked away. Halia walked away, got in the Jeep, ready to drive.
Right.
And she was sitting there and comes over to me and goes, "She's spitting blood out of her chest." And I come over, and I just see, right in this area, left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it. I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot, and you know what I'm saying? I didn't put pressure fast enough. So
That's rough. That's rough, brother. That's rough.
Man, just please save my sister, bro.
Okay.
And I come over and I just see right in this area, left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it. Then his voice broke. I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot. And you know what I'm saying? I didn't put pressure fast enough. So that's rough. That's rough, brother. It's rough, man. Just please save my sister, bro. He'd lost someone close to him before in the very same way. Now he was reliving that pain while holding his dying sister in his arms. But despite his quick action, despite his knowledge and his desperate attempts to save her, the wound was too severe. While Halia's brother desperately tried to save her life, Brianna was already making decisions that would seal her fate. At 11:48 p.m., a 911 call was made, reporting that a teenage girl had been stabbed outside 161 Carryout on Emporium Square. Columbus police officers arrived within minutes to a scene of chaos. Friends were screaming and crying as paramedics worked frantically to stabilize Halia and prepare her for transport. The body camera footage from those first moments captured the confusion and desperation as officers tried to maintain order while giving paramedics space to work. Halia's sister and friends were distraught, pleading to reach her, struggling to understand what was happening. Officers gently but firmly held them back as medical personnel fought to save her. Paramedics rushed Halia Culbertson to Ohio Health Riverside Medical Center, where trauma surgeons worked tirelessly to revive her. While doctors fought to save her life, police officers at the scene were already piecing together what had happened and identifying the person responsible for the stabbing. The suspect, Brianna Barazzini, was identified quickly because several witnesses knew both girls personally. One young woman, who had complicated ties to both families, immediately gave officers Brianna's full name and home address in Westerville. The most crucial piece of evidence came from the phone of the man who recorded the incident. When officers reviewed the recording, they immediately recognized its value and put the phone into airplane mode to preserve the footage and prevent any possibility of tampering. With Brianna identified, her address confirmed, and clear video evidence secured, Columbus police moved quickly to make an arrest. Officers drove to Westerville, a quiet suburban neighborhood where Brianna lived with her mother and stepfather. When they arrived, they found Brianna at home. Brianna had already taken a shower, changed her clothes, and the outfit she wore during the fight was found in the washing machine, already being washed. Brianna didn't fight when police came for her. She stayed calm and quiet. They handcuffed her and took her downtown to police headquarters. There, she sat alone in an interrogation room, waiting for hours before detectives were ready to speak with her. At 12:24 a.m. on March 27, 2023, doctors delivered news that would transform this from assault to murder. 17-year-old Halia Len Culbertson was pronounced dead. While Brianna sat in the interrogation room with the detective, she received the news that Halia had died. The realization hit her hard because she hadn't expected the injuries to be fatal. What began as a fight had now turned into something far more serious. At that moment, Brianna was officially placed under arrest for murder.
Just so that you know, Talia was taken to the hospital and she died. She didn't survive her injuries. So with all the people that we interviewed and the video that we recovered, we're charging you with murder.
No sort of self-defense or anything?
Essentially, it'll be up to the prosecutor's office. We'll present the case to them, and then if they decided that they want us to present to the grand jury, we'll present to the grand jury. If you get indicted for it, then it'll go to trial, it'll go to court, and then you'll be able to present a self-defense claim at that point.
I'm not going home?
No, you're going to jail, because we're charging you with the murder.
Just so that you know, the detective said, Halia was taken to the hospital and she died. She didn't survive her injuries. So with all the people that we interviewed and the video that we recovered, we're charging you with murder. No sort of self-defense or anything? Brianna asked. Essentially, it'll be up to the prosecutor's office. We'll present the case to them, and then if they decide that they want us to present to the grand jury, we'll present to the grand jury. If you get indicted for it, then it'll go to trial. It'll go to court, and then you'll be able to present a self-defense claim at that point. I'm not going home? Brianna asked. No. You're going to jail because we're charging you with the murder. But what investigators found on Brianna's phone 1 week before the stabbing would turn this case completely upside down. On March 27, 2023, Brianna Barazzini was formally charged with the murder of 17-year-old Halia Culbertson. In Ohio, a murder conviction carries a possible sentence of life imprisonment with the chance of parole only after serving at least 15 years. The next day, March 28th, Brianna appeared in Franklin County Municipal Court for her arraignment. Her attorney, Robert Crappens, made it clear that the defense would center on self-defense, suggesting that the circumstances surrounding the incident were more complex than they first appeared. Though he withheld details, Crappens portrayed Brianna as a young woman caught in a tragic situation rather than a cold-blooded killer. He pointed to her background as evidence of character. She had no prior criminal record, had graduated from high school, and was enrolled at Columbus State Community College. Crappens argued that these were not the marks of a violent person, but of someone whose life had taken a devastating turn. The judge, recognizing the gravity of the charge, set Brianna's bond at $750,000. Despite the high amount, her family managed to secure her release that same day. She walked out of jail on strict conditions: no contact with Halia's family or friends, no visits to the crime scene, no weapons, and no threats or acts of violence. Months stretched into a year as hearings were delayed and evidence reviewed. For Halia's family, each passing day deepened their pain. The girl who had taken their daughter's life was free and living her life while Halia lay in a grave. Then investigators made a discovery that would change everything. What Brianna didn't initially reveal to police was that she had sent her own threatening messages about Halia approximately 1 week before their fatal encounter. I'd sooner slice Culbertson's throat if she comes near me again, and I will cut that on my whole family if she tries showing up to my family's home again. These messages didn't just suggest anger. They revealed something far more calculated. The messages indicated that Brianna had been thinking about and threatening violence against Halia at least a week before the confrontation happened. As investigators uncovered these messages, the tone of the case began to shift. What had initially appeared to be a tragic act of self-defense now seemed far more deliberate. In the months that followed, both sides prepared for what was expected to be a highly publicized trial. The prosecution built its argument around three main points. First, they claimed that Brianna had used excessive force. Halia had been unarmed, her actions limited to slaps and shoves, which did not justify a deadly response. Second, they cited Brianna's behavior after the stabbing, fleeing the scene, showering, washing her clothes, and hiding the knife. Third, they planned to introduce text messages sent by Brianna a week before the incident in which she threatened Halia. To the prosecution, these messages revealed premeditation and intent. The defense countered with strong evidence of their own. They had video footage showing Halia waiting outside the store and initiating the fight. The same footage captured Brianna repeatedly backing away, more than 40 steps by their count, before and after pulling the knife. Witnesses confirmed that Halia had struck first and continued advancing even after seeing the weapon. The defense also invoked Ohio's Stand Your Ground law, which allows individuals to defend themselves without retreating if they are in a lawful place. They framed Brianna as a frightened young woman acting in panic, not malice. As trial approached in June 2024, the defense made a move that would gamble everything. As the June 2024 trial approached, both sides intensified preparations. But the defense made a move that would change everything. They filed a motion asking Judge Mark Surratt to exclude the threatening text messages Brianna had sent about Halia a week earlier. They argued that the messages would unfairly prejudice the jury, insisting that angry words written days before had no bearing on what happened during the confrontation. The prosecution strongly disagreed, asserting that the messages were key to understanding Brianna's mindset and intent. On June 10, 2024, as jury selection began, Judge Surratt ruled that the text messages would be allowed as evidence. He cautioned Brianna and her attorney that the messages would not help their case. The ruling was a heavy blow for the defense. It meant jurors would see Brianna's own words threatening to harm Halia just days before the stabbing, evidence that could overshadow even the most compelling footage of her retreating. Faced with this setback, attorney Robert Crappens had a difficult choice: proceed to trial with highly damaging evidence, or negotiate a plea deal that would avoid the risk of a life sentence but guarantee some prison time. That same afternoon, after learning of the judge's ruling, Brianna's legal team made their decision. They accepted a plea deal rather than risk a trial dominated by the text messages. Under the agreement, the prosecution dropped the murder charge in exchange for Brianna's guilty plea to involuntary manslaughter, a lesser charge carrying a maximum sentence of 3 years. Under Ohio law, involuntary manslaughter involves causing another person's death through reckless actions or during a sudden emotional outburst without intent to kill. By pleading guilty, Brianna admitted responsibility for Halia's death, but maintained that it was not premeditated. A confrontation that spiraled out of control rather than a deliberate act of murder. That afternoon, Brianna stood before Judge Surratt and formally entered her guilty plea, bringing the long and painful case one step closer to its end.
Stand up for me, please. I have in the computer a 3-page entry of guilty plea form. The document looks like you signed it and your lawyer signed it. Did you sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In signing it, you're telling me you want to admit to a felony-3 crime called involuntary manslaughter. When you plead guilty, it is a complete admission. You're going to be convicted today and you're going to be sentenced on July the 11th. It'll be on your record. It's a non-expungable offense. It carries up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Do you understand the nature of the charge to which you're pleading guilty and what the maximum penalties are?
Yes, Your Honor.
Stand up for me, please, the judge said. So I have in the computer a 3-page entry of guilty plea form. The document looks like you signed it and your lawyer signed it. Did you sign it? Yes, Your Honor, Brianna replied. All right, in signing it, you're telling me you want to admit to a felony 3 crime called involuntary manslaughter. When you plead guilty, it is a complete admission. You're going to be convicted today and you're going to be sentenced on July the 11th. It'll be on your record. It's a non-expungible offense. It carries up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Do you understand the nature of the charge to which you're pleading guilty and what the maximum penalties are? Yes, Your Honor. With that plea, the murder trial ended before it even began. Brianna Barazzini admitted guilt to involuntary manslaughter in the death of Halia Culbertson. For Halia's family, this plea deal felt like the ultimate betrayal. For Halia's family, the plea deal was devastating. They had prepared themselves for a trial that would reveal every detail of what happened. One where Brianna would face the full weight of a murder charge, and in their eyes, true justice would be served. Instead, they were left with an agreement that limited her punishment to a maximum of 3 years in prison. Halia's grandfather, Harley Langley, voiced the family's frustration, saying the sentence felt far too lenient for a life that was lost. Her grandmother, Vicky Cashdollar, was even more heartbroken, saying there could be no justice when their granddaughter would never come home again. From a legal standpoint, however, the plea deal was seen as a practical resolution for both sides. For prosecutors, it guaranteed a conviction and ensured Brianna would serve time, avoiding the uncertainty of a jury possibly accepting her claim of self-defense. On July 11, 2024, emotions would explode in that courtroom. On July 11, 2024, the day of sentencing, emotions ran high in the courtroom. The atmosphere was tense, and the judge made sure the courtroom was in order before proceeding with the sentencing. Just before the judgment was delivered, Assistant Prosecutor Trenton Groy spoke to the court, firmly asking for the maximum 3-year sentence. He said the evidence showed some signs of self-defense, Halia being aggressive, challenging Brianna to a fight, waiting outside to confront her, and striking first. But Groy stressed that none of this excused Brianna's actions, saying her choice to use a knife turned a fight into a tragedy.
She slaps Brianna Barazzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact. It is reasonable that those actions would anger Brianna Barazzini. However, none of those actions justify Brianna Barazzini taking a knife and plunging it into Halia's clavicle. Rather, that is an act of unjustifiable rage. A stabbing is a disproportionate response to a slap. Your Honor, today this court has the responsibility of deciding the appropriate sentence for Ms. Barazzini.
She engaged. She slaps Brianna Barazzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact. It is reasonable that those actions would anger Brianna Barazzini. However, none of those actions justify Brianna Barazzini taking a knife and plunging it into Halia's clavicle. Rather, that is an act of unjustifiable rage. A stabbing is a disproportionate response to a slap. Your Honor, today this court has the responsibility of deciding the appropriate sentence for Ms. Barazzini. The prosecution argued that while Halia's actions were aggressive, Brianna's decision to use a knife turned a simple fight into a tragedy. They urged the court to impose the maximum sentence, stressing that a young life was lost because of one reckless choice. But the defense attorney had a completely different story to tell. However, the defense attorney, Robert Crappens, presented a very different perspective on what had happened that night. He asked the court to watch the surveillance video again, this time with his narration pointing out specific details.
However, Mr. Barrage, who was a friend of Ms. Culbertson's, had the opportunity and took that opportunity to video Ms. Culbertson as Ms. Culbertson was waiting for Brianna to come out of the store. There's a significant period of time when Ms. Culbertson is waiting. Ms. Brianna comes out with drinks in her hand. There is a glass door, but there's posters or pictures or whatever covering that. I think it disputes the fact that this was a mutual combat. Let's get into a fist fight, and then fist fight got out of hand. And at that time, Brianna had pulled the knife. In watching and reviewing the video that was played about the actual events a little while ago, and I mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, I counted no less than 30 steps that my client took backwards. She pulled a knife from her pocket and took 15 more steps backwards away from Ms. Culberson. She didn't want to engage at all. This was more an assault than a mutual fistfight. And at the time, as Mr. Barrett said, she's afraid. She was in fear, and she was. When her friend tried to jump in and help, Mr. Barrett threatened him.
However, Mr. Barry, who was a friend of Miss Culbertson's, had the opportunity and took that opportunity to video Miss Culbertson as Miss Culbertson was waiting for Brianna to come out of the store. There's a significant period of time when Miss Culbertson is waiting. Miss Brianna comes out with drinks in her hand. There's a glass door, but there's posters or pictures or whatever covering that. I think it disputes the fact that this was a mutual combat. Let's get into a fist fight, and then fist fight got out of hand, and at that time, Brianna had pulled a knife. In watching and reviewing the video that was played about the actual event a little while ago, and I mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, I counted no less than 30 steps that my client took backwards. She pulled a knife from her pocket and took 15 more steps backwards away from Miss Culbertson. She didn't want to engage at all. This was more an assault than a mutual fist fight. And at the time, as Mr. Barry said, she's afraid. She was in fear, and she was. When her friend tried to jump in and help, Mr. Barry threatened him. The defense attorney's argument was clear and direct. He maintained that Brianna Barazzini was not the aggressor, but the victim of an assault, forced to defend herself only after trying to avoid the confrontation. He urged the court to show leniency and impose a sentence below the maximum, emphasizing that Brianna had already endured deep emotional suffering and would live with the weight of taking a life forever. While he agreed that some prison time was justified, he argued that a maximum sentence would not reflect the full complexity of the situation. Throughout all of this, Brianna sat at the defense table with one expression that shocked everyone. Throughout all of these devastating victim impact statements, Brianna Barazzini sat at the defense table largely expressionless. Whether this reflected emotional shutdown, a deliberate attempt to maintain composure in court, genuine remorse she was struggling to express, or something else entirely, only Brianna knows. But the image of her sitting stone-faced, while Halia's family wept and described their anguish, was noted by many observers and would be commented on later. Finally, Brianna stood to make her statement.
I never once thought I would be here today with these charges. I also have never been one to start a fight. I'm always the person to back away from confrontation. Not a day goes by that this incident hasn't been on my mind. I understand and feel for the victim's family, as I know the harm I have caused them is indescribable. I also feel for my own family, as the situation has caused them a lot of pain. I can understand and appreciate the harm that I have caused now. I would be living with this guilt the rest of my life. I took a life, and I understand the victim's family will suffer for the rest of their lives.
I never once thought I would be here today with these charges. I also have never been one to start a fight. I'm always a person to back away from confrontation. Not a day goes by that this incident hasn't been on my mind. I understand and feel for the victim's family, as I know the harm I have caused them is indescribable. I also feel for my own family, as this situation has caused them a lot of pain. I can understand and appreciate the harm that I have caused now. I will be living with this guilt the rest of my life. I took a life, and I understand the victim's family will suffer for the rest of their lives. This was a brief statement, and it seemed sincere in its expression of remorse. However, for Halia's family, no words could be adequate. No expression of remorse could bring Halia back or ease their pain. As the weight of those emotions settled over the courtroom, all eyes turned toward the bench, awaiting the judge's decision. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Mark Serrett prepared to deliver his final decision. The culmination of a deeply emotional and tragic case that had weighed heavily on everyone involved. He acknowledged that while there were mitigating factors and that Brianna Barazzini was technically eligible for probation, he would not be granting it. Then came the official sentencing.
I'm going to give you a 3-year prison sentence
I'm going to give you a 3-year prison sentence, 3 days jail credit. You are going to have the ability for early release, and I will consider that at the appropriate time." With those words, the courtroom exhaled in a mix of relief and sorrow. For some, it was justice served. For others, it felt far too light for a life lost. Judge Surratt ended by warning Brianna to behave well in prison and take responsibility for her rehabilitation, reminding her that her future would depend on the choices she made moving forward. One insult: cokehead. That single word, spoken inside a convenience store at 11:45 p.m. on a Sunday night, triggered a chain of events that ended with a 17-year-old girl bleeding out in a parking lot. 2 former best friends whose bond had turned toxic. One claimed self-defense and backed away 45 steps. The other was a recovering addict who felt publicly humiliated and wouldn't walk away. But text messages sent 1 week before told a different story. "I'd sooner slice Culbertson's throat if she comes near me again." The defense showed a frightened teenager retreating. The prosecution showed premeditated threats. The judge allowed the jury to see those threats, and the defense folded. Brianna Barazzini pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. 3 years maximum. Eligible for early release. Halia Culbertson's family will never get her back. Her brother will never forget holding her as she bled out, reliving the trauma of losing someone the same way before. Her grandparents will never hear her laugh again. And Brianna will serve 3 years, maybe less, for taking a life. Do you think the sentence was too harsh, too lenient, or just right? What aspect disturbed you most? The threatening texts sent a week before, the parking lot confrontation, or Brianna's expressionless face in court while Halia's family wept? If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe for more deep dives into true crime. Because the line between self-defense and murder is thinner than you think.